Celtics are in a little bit of a funk here. How are they being judged? Are they being judged against themselves, against other teams? What's fair? And what do we make of this 3-point shooting slump? It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Yup. Being down, be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Back to back, if I say it, it's stamp. Locked on number 19, the best one, the next one. Juice loose in your pool now for the next run. It's the C's, who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT Karalis, we kept the madness every game, every practice. Best daily pod, no cap like Brad Beckett. Clutch like Drew to KP, tap in daily. Primetime Depp and D White on the sideline. Raining Jayson, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. It's right here on the Locked On Podcast Network where it's your team every day, and I'm here every Monday through Friday. Bonus podcasts on the weekends when they play, so make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show. It is on YouTube. Get into that comment section. I'd love to hear your takes on what we're talking about here. Get in there. Talk to each other. There are some great conversations going on in those threads that keep popping up. It's a great place for Celtics fans to be. If you're new to the show, I'm John Karalis. I've been covering the Boston Celtics for about 20 years. I'm doing it now as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. So I'm there. I'm talking to the players. I'm talking to Joe Mazzulla, getting you as in-depth a podcast as you're going to find on the Celtics. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We're going to continue the conversation I started yesterday about three-point shooting. This is kind of the heart. This is everything when it comes to the Celtics. But also, Joe Mazzulla brought up an interesting point about how the Celtics are being judged. I didn't explore it yesterday. I'm going to do it today, and I'm going to do it here with Tom Westerholm. Tom, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. This is great. And you know what's funny? I just realized we upgraded our little system. So if I hit the mute button, it shows everybody that you're muted. So it's a new nice little feature.
Listen, I mean, the amount of times that I just get out of control on this podcast, the feature was necessary.
There we go. See, it works perfectly.
Yeah. I'm back.
So Joe had a quote yesterday when it came to the Celtics and just kind of like talking about how the parameters have kind of shifted when it comes to the Celtics here. Let me see if I can, because you transcribed it. Let me see here. He says right here, there's two great teams in the league that are having great seasons. So they become the reference point of, oh, you're not as good because you're not them. And they're great teams having historical years, and we're on our own path that we have to be able to work through. And just because we were that last year, you can't take for granted the details, habit, execution, togetherness, trust. Like all that stuff has to be rebuilt. So I think he's talking to fans. I think he's also talking to his team a little bit there. But also the reference point of the two teams having historical seasons. I don't know, Tom, what the real kind of feeling for Celtics fans is when it comes to this team. I know on Twitter, people are kind of losing their minds a little bit. I know I deal with the YouTube comment section, which seems to be okay.
Yeah.
The Boston Sports Journal comment section, which is not as okay. But I fully acknowledge that it's mostly a Patriots site, and there's been some vitriol. This was pre-Vrabel hiring. So I think people are just angry in general on that site. I don't know how to gauge what people are how people feel about the Celtics, but I do think there's some legitimacy to Joe's point that if the Celtics weren't 5.5 games behind the Cleveland Cavaliers, if they were a game behind the Cavaliers or a game and a half, and the Cavs were losing some of these games, and you're like, how the hell do they keep winning? That maybe people would just be like, this is just this part of the season, and maybe they wouldn't be as much like, I don't know, consternation.
So I think that's plausible. I also think it's possible that people would just lose their minds every time that a team loses. You know, like it's like there's like, whether you're like on Twitter or, Blue Sky or whatever it is, or like, subreddits, like whatever, like people lose their minds when things aren't going great in that moment. So that, I think, for sure would be happening. I also think like part of the Celtics problem is that they started so well, right? Like, like not only did they win the championship, they came into the season and it's just like, oh my goodness, like this team is killing everyone. And then, Cleveland's playing great. The Celtics come in, they're the ones who break the winning streak. It's like, wow, like this team is all that. Like they're gonna, felt a little bit like the 2009 Celtics pre-KG injury that we reference, fairly often, where it's like that team may have been better than 2008. That's how this team started feeling. And like not to be too reductive about it, but it's like the 3-point shooting has fallen off and the Celtics have fallen off, and it's like, yeah, the enthusiasm has waned a little bit because it's like, oh, they're not going to just piece everybody by 35 points. Like, there's going to be a lot of to Mazzulla's point, there's going to be a journey here, and I mean, look, so that journey could end with a championship for sure. That journey might not end with a championship, like. But either way, like I think that the way the Celtics started is kind of like the expectations were so high for a stretch there, and I think it's hard to kind of escape that a little bit, like especially when last season ended with a title. So it's like the expectation is like, hey, this team's got to be at the absolute highest level at all times. And it's like, well, that's not really how things work. If you expected that, if we were saying that at the start of the year, that wasn't quite accurate. There were always going to be times like this.
Yes.
That's just kind of how basketball works.
Right. And the spot where the Celtics are in is so interesting because I think for people who've been around the league for a while, like me and you, we see this and it's just part of like, yep, here we go, ups and downs. I think one of the points that Joe's making is like, well, Cleveland isn't having an up and a down. They're just up. And OKC is not having an up and a down. They're just kind of up. And, Jayson Tatum says, I think somewhat accurately, like, you don't want to be playing your best basketball in January because, there's always going to be a little bit of a dip. And people are like, no, why shouldn't you be playing great basketball in January? We're like, well, yes, but also like, I kind of also understand what he's saying. And my point is like, I don't see these stretches as some sort of referendum on the Celtics' ability to win a championship. I don't see these stretches as like, oh my God, this is what's going to happen if they can't hit their threes. Well, yeah, of course. But like, I do expect a little bit more energy, and I expect the threes to fall. Like, this is what happens if that's all you do. Like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't want to be dismissive of fans being angry. You pay the money, you invest your time, but also like there's this, it's championship or bust. And part of the championship process is like, they're saving themselves. Part of this is definitely a team that is saving themselves because, buddy, we got 6 more months to go. It's January 13th. We literally have 6 more months here of Celtics basketball. This is crazy here.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, I think to like to the Tatum point, right? I think there's a little bit of cope in that, right? Where it's like, we're starting a little bit, it's like, you don't even want to be playing your best basketball now. It's like, I mean, you'd like to be playing your best basketball all the time. And
82 games your best basketball, but at the same time.
Yeah. And also, I think it is worth noting that like last year's team, a lot of last year, they were, people were like, well, the Celtics are peaking too early. Like there was a lot of that talk last year as well. Right. So it kind of cuts both ways there a little bit.
Yes.
But the larger point is, like when I think when Mazzulla talks about being on a basketball journey, it's like, or when he talks about a season being a journey, it's like, the Celtics are on such a different one than the Cavaliers and the Thunder. The Celtics have nothing to prove at this point. Excuse me. The Celtics have nothing to prove at this point. They've already won a championship. What they need to do is like recapture as much of that as they can during the playoffs. And that's not always going to look as pretty. And that's why their journey is so different, because they don't have to prove themselves during the regular season. They already did that. They're stamped, they're champions, and they're going to try to do it again. And so, like, yeah, it's just hard to muster that same enthusiasm. It might not even be that healthy to muster that same enthusiasm all season. But then I also think that it's also fair then, if you're a fan, to be like, well, this kind of stinks. Like, I want to see them play with the same level of energy. And it's like, I get that. I like, really, I do. But also, like, this team's, primary focus is winning another championship. That's like what this whole thing is built on. What this entire franchise is built on is like, how do we win the next championship? And to do that, it's not going to be that same level of intensity that it was last year. And that's just kind of how it is.
It's an interesting thing. What's fair? What's the fair way to look at this from both sides? Like, for the fans, for the players. You know what? We'll continue this because there's a lot to unpack. Today's show brought to you by Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. So whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget. We're doing a lot of like cleaning out and redecorating here at my house, and I know Wayfair is a place where whenever my wife's like, hey, let's get this, it's always Wayfair links. So we're looking at, furniture. They have a huge selection. It makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style, my budget, and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. Wayfair's site is so easy to navigate. You can find anything you need in no time. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your budget. So what's your decor? You want modern, you want something more classic, it's all there. I like to mix it up a little bit sometimes. And look, Wayfair has a ton of options. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's wayfair.com, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Hey, after games, you're going to see 2 podcasts on this audio feed. So one is Locked On Celtics postcast. Immediately after the game, Steve Lennox fires up an immediate reaction on the Locked On Sports Boston YouTube page. That audio comes onto this audio feed. The YouTube page here, Locked On Celtics YouTube page, is unchanged, but the audio feed has that. And then my podcast, I'm in the back. I'm talking to the players. I'm talking to Mazzulla. And then I have a more in-depth kind of podcast. So make sure you're checking out both. All right, let's get back to this discussion here, because fans are owed a good product. And people always want to figure out, why are ratings down? Why are ratings down? I think one of the reasons why ratings are down is fans know, like, you can throw a tournament in the middle of the season all you want, but I think all the tournament does is make it a little extra, like a little bit of an extra dip here in January. Like, if those teams are supposed to be as amped or pretend to be as amped, then after that's over, you still have January. You still have the All-Star break. I just, a team like the Celtics owes the fans what? A championship? Great play throughout the season? Both? Yeah, both. Like, we'd love both, except the season started in October and it will end in June, and that is a long time. It's 5 months, not 6 months. It's 5 months from now, but still a long time. June is a long way away, and that is a lot of basketball to be played. You played a lot of basketball. You had a short off season. A bunch of guys went to the Olympics, and now everybody's like, why aren't you playing your best? Well, you expect Drew Holiday to be his exact best after all of that? Maybe he shouldn't have gone to the Olympics, but he's not going to turn that down. It's tough. Maybe some of Derek's stuff is a little bit of a swoon because of all of that. I hate to say it, but these guys are human, and there's going to be ups and downs in a season for sure. Having that just thing after thing after thing, and then you throw them over to the freaking Abu Dhabi thing. of course, the weird schedule, that big December, time at home with like a week off, and it's just weird. Like, it's not a surprise that that's when they got into their funk. Like, all that time at home, things changed. The energy changed. It was the wrong kind of Jaylen Brown energy shift. You know what I mean? It just shifted the wrong way. So I don't know, Tom. It just feels like, yes, we want it all, but you're not going to get it all. And I think if the Celtics are going to win a championship, a dip in this energy. Kristaps Porzingis said it. I mean, there's a little bit of an energy shortage here. That's happening, and I don't want to be the guy that tells fans just deal with it, but I don't know what else to say that other than you kind of have to deal with this part of the schedule and trust them to turn it on later.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is part of what it comes down to. I think that there's some level too of like, if you're a fan, it's worth remembering that they're 28-11 too, right? Like, you're seeing a lot of wins.
Element of this, like, yes.
And I will say too, like, but also, like, obviously they're 7-6 in their last 13, so there's a fall off that has happened. So that's all, and I think it's like, but I think it's fair to acknowledge, like, go ahead.
That they are the third best team in the NBA.
In the NBA, yes, defending a championship, yes. So, like, much success has occurred in the last 12 months or so. I do think it is a little like, I think it's fair for fans to be frustrated. I think it's fair for fans to be like, man, I want to see this team play good basketball. And, like, I would never want to deny fans the validity of that. Like, you're cheering for your team. Like, you want your team to be awesome. Of course you do. And they are, and, like, it doesn't necessarily look like it right, like, all the time right now when they're, struggling to beat the Pelicans and all that stuff. Like, it's like, yeah, there's, like, some level of slippage that isn't quite as fun to see. But I think it's one of the biggest problems, right, is, like, you have to take it with a certain amount of perspective, and that's so hard to do on a random Sunday evening in January. Like, to take that perspective of, like, okay, but there's, like, a bigger picture here. I like, if you're a fan, it's like, I don't want to wait until May to watch good basketball, which, fair. Like, I get it. Like,
I get it.
But I think when you choose to be, or when you are born into, or whatever it is, when you become a fan of the Boston Celtics, you have to kind of have this perspective of, like, okay, this team is working toward things that are bigger than right now almost all the time. Like, unless you are actively in the NBA finals or actively in, the Eastern Conference finals, or maybe just the playoffs in general, this team is building towards something bigger. That was the case in whole seasons, right? Where they're like, we're trying to, like the Marcus Smart, when they went out, the Marcus Smart's first season, it's like they're building towards something bigger. Isaiah Thomas, was kind of an accident, and it was like, they weren't sure whether they were going to build around that or not, because they wanted to build something bigger. They always have these grand schemes to win championships, and that's just part and parcel of, being a fan of, being around the Celtics, is you have to keep remembering that, like, there's always something on the horizon that they're going for. And that's definitely going to be the case in January basketball, whether they're a contender or not. Like, this team is looking toward the postseason, for better or worse. Like, that's the thing that they're focused on. And I don't know, that might not sell tickets to a February game. Like, I get that, but it is just kind of a reality of a team of this caliber.
Here's my whole thing. I believe, trust me, like, fans have every right to be upset when things aren't going the way you expect. But I guess the heart of what I'm getting at is, what are you mad at? Are you mad at the Celtics for not being as good, or are you mad at them for not, like, looking a certain way or meeting expectations, your own expectations? Like, if they played the exact same game yesterday, okay, Sunday, with a couple of the results just a little bit different, they won by 1, Everything goes exactly the same except Jayson Tatum makes one more three-pointer. Jaylen Brown makes one, and Derek White makes one. So that's 9 points. That's plus. So now they're at 10. They win by 10. And DeJounte Murray, instead of going 6 for 9, goes 4 for 9. Still a really good shooting night, but now that's a 16 points. Now you're up. You win by 16. All right. So just the make miss element. If everything goes exactly the same and the Celtics beat the Pelicans by 16, they cover that big 14.5 point spread. Everything, they win. There's garbage time. No one is saying a thing. But because DeJounte Murray hit a couple of those shots, tough ones, some really tough ones. Jayson missed a bunch.
But also DeJounte Murray's a good basketball player, so that's you can expect a good basketball player to sometimes be a really good basketball player.
That's right, but he's not a great shooter.
Right.
But he hit a couple that he normally doesn't hit. This is the whole variance thing. He hit a couple that he normally doesn't hit. The Celtics, 13 of 44. You can find 3 3-pointers in there somewhere that normally go down, right? You can find at least
find three threes that you normally go down from like a single player who shot poorly yesterday.
Right. So everything goes exactly the same, but things that normally should happen, right? And things that normally shouldn't happen don't happen. Then this game isn't a 1-point game. This isn't the Celtics struggle to beat an 8-win team. Just the shots, the make miss element of this makes it exactly what we expected. And so whose fault is that? Nobody's. They tried to make the shot.
Yeah.
Let's
real quick before we do, let me just say really quick. I also hate when people are like upset about like beating a team in the NBA because it's just like, no, I'm sorry. The Pelicans have a lot of NBA players. Like Trey Murphy.
They actually do. DJ is good.
Yeah.
Trey Murphy is good.
Really good. Yeah.
Like Zion had a bad game, but like CJ McCollum's not bad. Like he's a good player.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. You played an NBA team and you beat them and like
they have Daniel Tice. Come on.
Guys.
What are we doing here? All right. Yeah. Well, let's keep going with this. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. We all love going to live events, nice concert, maybe comedy show. My wife will go to the theater. Those tickets available on obviously sports as well, but I'm not really going to the theater. I'm not going to lie. I've tried, and my wife is going to tell me, no, you can stay home. I'm sorry. It's just not my thing, but it's all there on Game Time. So I can use it. She can use it to get tickets to our favorite events. Using the Game Time Picks feature, it filters out all the fluff so we can each get great deals on great seats at whatever venue we're looking at, whether I'm going to a sports event, which she's coming with me to those, and she's going to take a friend of hers to the theater. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can just go with the Game Time Picks feature there. The amazing deals are there. You can get the view from your seat before you buy, and you can see what you're going to see. They have unbeatable prices. The app's all-in pricing shows you total cost up front, no surprise fees at the checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. A lot of people looking to figure out how to buy tickets. Don't worry about it. Here's all you got to do. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKED, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Today's show also brought to you by Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, you have this ongoing problem. We all do. There's no time, work, life, trying to eat healthier. I know. I am trying to eat healthier, and it's so tough going to the grocery store. You don't even know what to buy. You end up with no time to actually cook what you get. Sticking to the health goals are a struggle, but that changes when you get Hungry Root. It's a game changer. You can stay healthy, eat healthy without all the stress. Hungry Root is like a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of the grocery shopping, recommending meals, groceries based on your taste, health goals, anti-inflammatory. That's a big one for me. High protein, gluten-free options, and the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. Quick, healthy meals that taste great, all delivered straight to your door. It's been a huge time saver for everybody who uses Hungry Root, and it makes healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love it. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Now go download the Ultimate Celtics newsletter, one stop for all your Celtics, NBA, fantasy coverage, right to your inbox. Go to LockedOnDaily.com, LockedOnDaily.com. Click on that Locked On Celtics logo. Sign up for the newsletter. Open it up, read it. You're going to find all that great coverage plus links to some great Celtics coverage around the internet. It's all right there. Let's continue this discussion here about variance and all of that stuff, because look, the variance has gone the other way. The stat I shared on yesterday's podcast and on Twitter and on Boston Sports Journal, essentially we did the podcast, Tom. The Celtics had a built-in 18-point advantage in November. They were hitting 6 more threes than their opponents, and now their opponents are hitting 2 more. This is a huge swing and part of the overall problem. Like, the Pelicans were 17 of 37. The Celtics were 13 of 44. Yeah. So that's not how the Celtics win games. And I hear and see a lot of people are like, no, you got to adjust your playing style. You are not going to adjust your playing style on January 13th. They've gone through training camp and all of this time. Their season is almost halfway done. They're not going to come in and be like, hey, guys, we need to change our entire offense. It's just not going to happen. Like, that's the one thing I want to stress. If anybody's sitting there saying they have to change how they play, even if Joe Mazzulla is like, yeah, you're right, over the summer, we're going to put in a new plan and we're going to hammer that home. But right now, they got to get back to three-point shooting. They got to get back to three-point shooting volume, which means playing offense with energy, which is part of the problem. They don't have the energy. There's a lot more ISO going on. And even though ISO looks like it's harder, it's easier to isolate. The more ISO you see, the lazier the team is being, because they're not setting picks and cutting and all of that other stuff. It's just, hey, it's my turn. I'm going to go do my thing. So nothing tells me that the Celtics are in a little bit of a lazy funk than isolation basketball. And that's we're seeing more of it. And I think that's a big part of why the 3-point shots have swung. And the Celtics, if they're going to be who they're going to be, they got to get those 3-point shots up. And obviously they got to start hitting them.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of Joe Mazzulla's first season, right? Where I think I brought this up the other day too, where Hauser started off so hot, and it was like, yeah, and every time he came off the bench, you talk about those like that 18-point, that the Celtics just had that huge advantage. Like, he would be like half of that every single game, and like it does feel kind of familiar in that way, where it's like when that tails off a little bit. But the thing to remember too is that, like, one, the Celtics, like, there's enough really excellent shooters on this team that if they get back to generating those shots in the way that they used to, right, that they did at the start of the year, that a lot of these shots, a lot of these shooters are underperforming right now. It will even out to some extent, probably not quite to the extent that it did at the start of the year. That probably was a little bit too good. It's just not going to stay this bad, probably, right? So then, like, okay, there's the one thing. And then the other thing is, like, at the end of that year, the Joe Mazzulla's first season, like, that team had a genuine chance to make some noise. Like, they played pretty well. So, like, this, I don't think that this is some kind of I don't know. I don't think that, like, this is something to panic about. I don't think that this is. I think that the 3-point shooting is going to level up to some degree. like to your point, they're going to keep playing this way either way. But when it does level up to some degree, I think we're going to see a lot more blowouts. Again, I think we're going to see a lot of like, it might not be quite as dominant as it was at the start of the season, but it's like if guys continue to shoot 26%, sure, the Celtics are going to not make a deep playoff run. But like even getting back to that kind of middle of the pack number on most nights, I think would do the job in a playoff series. And that, again, to kind of bring it back to what we were talking about at the start, comes back to the journey element of this, right? Like every season is its own journey. And it's like the Celtics started really high, comes down. I think it's going to go back up again, just based off the nature of the schedule and based off the nature of, a contending team getting back to contention.
So 2 seasons ago, they shot 37.7%. Last season, they shot 38.8%. So the trend should be 39.9%, I assume. Right. Right? I mean, it's kind of where it should go.
If now math is going to math. I mean, I know a pattern when I
look. I mean, 2 data points is enough for me. 36.2 is a big drop from 38.8. 2.5 full percentage points there. Season to season over this kind of sample is a really good amount of missed shots. I don't think they're this bad shooting wise. They haven't been this bad. They had the year before in the this is Ime Udoka's year. They dropped to 35.5%. But other than that, in the Jayson Tatum era, I don't see them being this bad for a full season. So,
well, even if you look at the last 20 games, it's 34.7%. It's low right now.
They're better than this. Yes. They are better than, and like Derek White's shooting like 20-something% in January. That's look, I mean, unless somebody hit him over the head and he thinks he's back in San Antonio, that is not good. That's not going to last, right? There's too much confidence here. I think the shooting, I'll put it, I don't think it's a surprise that the shooting has dipped along with everything else. And that to me is both like damning, but also encouraging because everything is there. They've lost everything. And this team is too good to have lost everything. And it brings us back to the beginning where this is mostly an effort thing. And it's not like they're not trying at all. But I go back to what we were saying last week. How much can you get away with and still win these games? And I think that's the line that they've been trying to find of can we get away with not getting back on defense? And it's always like a little thing here or there that costs them. But they're not just going out and just mailing in games completely. They're just having real noticeable lulls over the course of these games where they're just like, all right, let's go do it. Let's do the second quarter here. Let's go. Let's third quarter. Or they played 3 quarters and we've done enough. We've proven what we need to prove. Fourth quarter can, whatever. Which is infuriating for a fan. And I understand why it's infuriating. But in the long run, I can't bring myself to be worked up about a team that just won a championship being, going through a rut of can't get 100% motivation. Trying to get by with 85% motivation. I can't get worked up about that. I know they make money and all that stuff, but I can't.
I mean, it's funny, right? Because it's like everybody talks about the championship hangover and how hard it is, those first couple months of the season. It just feels like the Celtics pushed their championship hangover a few months down the road, right? It's like it came out so hot. It's like
feeling great. They're like, I'm going to go for a run, and get back from the run, oh my god, I'm going to puke.
Yeah. They started the season to Joe Mazzulla's point with that that red dot right in the middle of their forehead.
Yeah.
They're like, we got to outrun this. And then they did. And they're like, oh, I'm good. Oh my gosh, my head hurts. I'm going to puke. Everybody stop making so much noise. Like, yeah.
Get these guys some Pedialyte.
Get them some Pedialyte. Get them an IV.
All right, I'm sure much more on this because I don't know. I think this is going to be like this for I don't think they're going to snap out of it. Yeah. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll just smoke Toronto. I think really honestly, the best thing for the Celtics to do would be to just come out and blow the doors off of Toronto. Just 60-point win. Just go out there and just decimate them and be like, "Are you not entertained?" And then have like a last second shot against Orlando, and people are like, what's going on? But like just to show, just to flex and be like, by the way, this is what we're capable of. We're gonna go back into hibernation for another month.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see. Tom, always appreciate you, my friend.
Appreciate you, man.
And I always appreciate you, the listener, the watcher, the participant, the active participant here in the comment section. I really don't want to be dismissive, but I just can't help but take the long-term view when it comes to this team. And I know fans, you live and die by every game, and you should. I'm not telling you not to, but also there's something bigger at stake. And that's where my head is. So tell me, you can tell me I'm full of it if you want in the comment section. By all means, lay it on me. But I would love to hear from you. I'd also love it if you shared the podcast and told everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.